but this is a sustained, evil, and absolutely unhinged attempt to destroy my life. And I really don't, I'm tired of mincing words at this point. He is trying to ruin my life. He's trying to inflict emotional harm, physical harm on me. He knows exactly what he's doing. And this is one of the most wicked people that I've ever dealt with. I'm not trying to seek attention with this, but the people who are buying into this narrative, they exist at many levels, including at the very top level, and they include a large number of chess fans. Like, this is doing very serious damage and actual damage. It's not just like bots or, Russian spies who are believing Kramnik. He has a lot of authority. He's a fucking world champion.
During this whole Levitov interview, I think that you went through like your entire setup, right? You showed everything in your room and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I assume, was not convincing for Kramnik.
No.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C Squared podcast. In today's episode, we have a redo of one of our very special guests from the past, that is Grandmaster Danya Naroditsky, who's once again here, not to talk about all the beautiful educational content that he's been providing and all the good improvement tools that he's been talking about throughout the years, his commentary and whatnot, but to be talking about a very specific topic that has been affecting and in fact pretty much capturing the chess world by storm for the last couple of weeks, and that is, of course, the cheating allegations brought by Vladimir Kramnik, or as he says, just I think suspicions or questions. It's never specifically cheating. So that will be the focus of our episode today. Danya, welcome back to the show. To begin, I would briefly ask you to more or less tell us, when did you first become aware about these allegations from Kramnik, or questions?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, first of all, Christian, Fabi. It's always an honor to come on your show. I had such a blast the first time, and obviously the topic will definitely shift today, but I'll try to offer my completely unfiltered thoughts. At this point, I couldn't censor myself if you asked me to, and I know that's a weird statement coming from Danya Naroditsky, the master of political correctness and self-filtering, but not today. Not today. When did I first become aware? I think there were stages to this thing, right? I mean, obviously, I understood that because of the disparity in my blitz results and my lack of classical chess and my OTB blitz results, I would, there was a chance that I would end up under Kramnik's crosshairs. He tweeted about me, like, insinuatingly a couple of times, I think, or maybe just once. But it was together with a bunch of players like Benjamin Buck, and like Esipenko and just like complete randos. So I didn't think anything of it. Then he escalated it with a tweet about my Title Tuesday performance and the fact that, my cap score or whatever was 90 plus in 10 games and nobody had done it since Magnus. So that's when I thought, okay, I kind of see where this is going. But it wasn't until he put out that first video about me, the farming, right? The new series, that I understood that I was sort of next in line after Hikaru. But still, I thought, okay, he was going to put out 3 or 4, crazy delusional videos, and then he would move on to the next target. And eventually, the chess world would wake the heck up and just, the negative feedback in his direction would convince even him that it was time to lay down his arms and change his behavior. Unfortunately, I feel like almost the opposite has happened, and it became apparent to me at some point that this is no longer a case of sort of me being next in line, but this is a sustained, evil, and absolutely unhinged attempt to destroy my life. And I really don't, I'm tired of mincing words at this point. He is trying to ruin my life. He's trying to inflict emotional harm, physical harm on me. He knows exactly what he's doing, and this is one of the most wicked people that I've ever dealt with, and one of the most wicked acts that I've dealt with probably in my life. So the full extent of it has only been apparent to me for a couple of days, Christian.
Now, how did you initially react? And you touched a little bit upon this, but how did you initially react to this accusation? In terms of also psychology, I want to know your mental state at that point, because obviously when you've you're so embedded into the chess world. Pretty much your whole career, your professional life is surrounding the chess world. Now, when you get accused, even if those accusations don't necessarily have a lot of substance to them, you still get stained by it, right? So obviously that takes a toll on your mental health as well. What was your first reaction, and can you tell us a bit about your mental state at that point? Like, were you in defensive mode? Now, obviously, I feel like you're quite offensive. You want to get your point across, but the first initial, let's say level.
Yeah, I mean, I think my reaction has changed, and I think it's super important to introduce kind of levels here and nuance. I think in general, nobody should react personally at the expression of like legitimate suspicions or even questions in the non-ironic way. Like I'm just asking questions. Like actual questions should be welcomed, I think, by players who have like anomalous statistics. And I do. I mean, I'm the first to say that, like, there aren't a lot of people who can hit, like 3,200 and they're 26-20 FIDE and retired from classical. Okay, so at first I wasn't happy with the kind of nasty, insinuating tone. I went on Levitov Chess, the Russian channel, 7 months ago, and this was after Kramnik had put out his first tweet about me. And I talked a little bit about that, and so I was more than happy to sort of dispel any suspicions that had occurred. And I think it's really incumbent upon the quote unquote onliners to act in good faith and to show that if they truly have nothing to hide, then what does it cost me to do a stream where I reveal my setup, or what does it cost me to put a second or third or 18th camera now behind me just to show that it's not a bot making the moves with my hand on the mouse? What does it cost me to publish my chess-based game history on a particular day? Nothing, right? I have nothing to hide. I'm happy to do those things, provided that the other party is like expressing legitimate suspicions in a polite way and making it very clear that this is not a personal attack. They want to be able to play me in peace, and I totally get that. So I was trying to act that way at the start, but the thing is, like, the level shifted from, okay, legitimate suspicions, legitimate questions, let's say. I express suspicions about players. I hope that they don't react in the same way and like, oh, Naroditsky's evil. How dare he, claim that this guy played all computer moves in our Title Tuesday game.
I think there is, sorry to interrupt
go ahead,
for a
Fabi,
second.
please.
I think there is an important distinction when it comes to, like, if someone is trying to prove their innocence, and even if they have no reason to need to try to prove their innocence, but there's a distinction between doing that behind closed doors. So let's say I think someone is perhaps suspicious, even if that's completely incorrect, and I bring it up to the player and to the organizer of whatever tournament. But it does feel like this is not really an issue for Twitter. Like, that can all be handled behind closed doors. So you provide your evidence that you're clean. They pose their questions, and everything is settled behind closed doors, which feels like it would be the proper approach, even if it has to be done at all, which I think in the vast majority of cases doesn't have to be done. Like, I think you don't really need to prove your innocence. Sorry, this microphone just came unstuck. But you don't really need to prove your innocence unless there is like some either smoking gun, or there is something so anomalous like a 2,300, beating Magnus several times in a row, or a 2,200 winning Title Tuesday, things like that. But within the realm of reason, also doesn't feel like there is much there, just from my perspective. Although I do understand, I have my fair share of paranoia, as everyone knows, and probably everyone does. But still, my main point was that I feel like it can be handled behind closed doors without making it an issue for a million anonymous people on Twitter to jump in the ring as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that take. And the perverse thing, and we can get to that, I'll wrap up my my opening statement, is that, like, now I can play a 2,400 in Title Tuesday and get destroyed in 30 moves, and the guy takes like 2 seconds to play a crazy move and then 30 seconds to capture my hanging rook. I will like say in the mildest possible way, I think this was a bit of an odd game. And boom, you're Kramnik, you're worse than Kramnik. Like somehow he is allowed to bring his authority to bear and try to like destroy my reputation. Because as you said, Christian, this is a stain. It's much harder to wipe, you can put that shirt in the laundry a million times, but the stain, it's hard to get the stain off. And it's hard when you come into like Anisha's chat or any chat and you're Naroditsky, you're like people are just being nasty about this. And it doesn't matter how many times I've discredited the source of these accusations or how absurd the accusations are on their face. We can get to Bc8, but Bc8 is as bad as the accusations made during the Salem witch trials in the 1690s. And I really want to talk about the witch trials because he is quoting verbatim from some of the interrogating techniques. So if he wants to return to Puritan Massachusetts in the 1690s, it was a great time to be alive. I think he should experience what daily life was back then, because clearly Vlad is a big fan of the legal process of that time. I'm in total disbelief at how this has been handled. And Christian, I really think at this point, this goes far beyond any kind of good faith desire to root out cheating, which I think is a tremendous problem of potentially unanticipated proportions in both online and over-the-board chess.
Now, to follow up on that question and to your emotions and, what Fabi said about bringing it in the public's eye, did you try to reach out to Vladimir privately after you heard of his accusations?
So in the spirit of openness, I will say that after my Levitov appearance, Kramnik recorded a reaction, a 2-hour reaction where he just basically disagreed with everything I said and was, I wouldn't charge him with being rude or anything, but it was, he felt very strongly that I had misrepresented the situation of online cheating. And he invited me to his show, but I was not interested. I mean, this is not my role in life. I'm a commentator. This is not my war to wage. And I was happy to get behind his efforts, provided that they were undertaken in good faith, even if we disagreed. So, I mean, I didn't go on a show, but I didn't realize that was sort of an obligation or expectation. I sort of made it clear that
just to make sure
this is Kramnik's channel.
Kramnik's show.
Yeah, okay. This is Kramnik's channel, and I kind of made it clear to Levitov that okay, like I'll let you fight your battle, and you let me fight mine. My battle is with bullet chess addiction. His battle is with chess cheating. We all have a role to play in life. Okay. Then, once the videos started coming out and escalating really, really quickly, I did not offer a direct dialogue, but I thought he would understand that my responses on the Twitch stream were a good faith effort to answer his questions. Like I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. I made it very clear, like what he was lying about. And he has lied about a staggering number of things, the vast majority of the things he said. But I didn't try to like artificially escalate it. I mean, my rhetoric was very harsh, of course, like as I think anyone's tone would be if you're like accused of perhaps the most serious crime that you can commit as a grandmaster. A potential reputation destroying crime. So I was very firm, but I also tried to refute the particular charges that he was making. And I thought that would be case closed. But then everything I would say not only would be called a lie for no reason, like he would just lies. It's almost like he said yesterday on the Levitov channel that you started it. He said that phrase, you started it. And I was like, this man needs psychiatric assistance stat. I mean, or maybe I'm just like living in a different reality.
What does he mean when he says you started it?
What he means is, again, to be clear, he's not claiming that I released the first video on Kramnik being a farmer. Maybe he should become a farmer somewhere in Peru, together with Jaspam. But he means I started the vitriol. Like in response to his initial set of videos, I recorded a long reaction. He then thought that I uploaded a 15-minute video to YouTube, which was actually uploaded by someone named Stoned Gamer, a YouTuber with 6 subscribers. It was mistitled, and it was a very small segment from my actual stream where I went into a lot more depth. So in that response, I said that he had been making slanderous lies, but because it was just an out-of-context clip that was 15 minutes long, I didn't go into depth about exactly why a lot of the things he was saying were lies, and I did that on the actual VOD of the Twitch stream. So he claims that I was the first to start accusing the other of mendacity and acting in bad faith, and I
But I
believe
just
that
want to
that is
understand.
because
So
he's acting in bad faith.
he accused, or he, let's not say accused, he
He asked questions
suggested that
about.
you were unfair. You responded by saying it's not true, and then that was you uh starting it. Is that my
Yes,
understanding? Okay.
that your understanding is correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's so like I want to say that this Vladimir, I think it was about a year ago. It's pretty recent, maybe a year and a few months ago that he started his online campaign against cheating, which on its face, of course, is very fair. I mean, cheating is a terrible thing, and the less cheating we have, so fighting cheating, what could be better? Uh, and and definitely with some uh, caveats, I was close to on board with what he was saying at the start about a year ago. But then there was like a lot of mixed messaging. It started with uh, accuracy, like the cap score on chess.com, which I think I've said multiple times is not really a metric to go by. I mean, if someone is doing 100% throughout the tournament, yeah, that's cheating. If a 900 is performing 95% every game, yeah, that's almost certainly cheating. But uh, you shouldn't be like judging between grandmasters performing 89% or 92% over 11 games, because a lot of these accuracies are based on, are you finding the most accurate way to win? Like, is it +5 or +7? Things like that, right? It's not really a metric to determine the quality of a game. And then he went into the statistics of um, like what's the probability of a player scoring 8.5 out of 11, right? Based on their chess.com
Mm-hmm.
rating or FIDE rating. These were very often mixed up. And I think that you should have consistent number. Like, you should either stick to FIDE ratings or chess.com ratings across the board. You shouldn't just like jump between the two to determine your statistics. And then a lot of it was not even based on anything. It was just, I challenge you to a match, which which
Trial
is
by
not a
combat.
science. It's not a trial by combat. It's not a scientific method. If you play Kramnik, you prove either you are or aren't. And then a lot of his stuff was dropped. Like, he plays two matches, and then there is no conclusion to this all. And I'm left wondering, like, what was the point of this whole uh, crusade? I mean, interesting though it may be to watch. What was the conclusion? I never found out what his opinion is after the result of two
I
matches.
I think I would assume you're talking about the Jaspin matches. I think
Yeah,
his
yeah.
Yeah, and I can
conclusion.
offer my take because he said in Russian, and then he went on a podcast with Nepo, and he actually did share some thoughts. But Christian, you go ahead.
I was just listening. I was trying to do some research for this episode, and I was listening to his most recent one, which dropped just today. And he did just mention, I think for the first time, perhaps in the English-speaking world, about his conclusion, his personal conclusion about those ones. And his main point was that he finally got to show the world that there's no big difference between online and over-the-board chess performance. So when he played Jaspin, more or less both the online and the over-the-board sections were competitive. And that's compared to his previous score against Jaspin, which was pretty abysmal for him. I guess that was what I understood, what I drew from that. What did you draw from his conclusion?
Bobby, do you want to?
Oh no, you go ahead.
So yeah, on his Nepo, it took me a while to get the pun in this. Nepo did a podcast with a couple of Russian speaking GMs, and he called it the Nep podcast, which in Russian is a pun because it means not podcast, не podcast, but also Nepo cast.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny. Just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
put that out there. So Kramnik, yeah, he kind of was dancing around, like beating around the bush. He said, yeah, the results of the match were inconclusive. And, on the one hand, I mean, the fact that he didn't beat me by a large margin, clearly shows that I was legitimate in acting the way that I did and blah, blah, blah. But on the other, like this is the thing. I mean, he's just pathologically incapable of admitting A, that he's ever wrong. B, that he is, yeah, like essentially he acts perfectly and he will change the narrative and literally deny reality for as long as it takes, no matter how much like mental acrobatics you have to do in order to like keep that consistent. So it's funny because he reversed the timeline. With me, he started by offering the duel. With Jospin, I think he started with a lot of by casting suspicions and then ended with, okay, now you have a choice. Either we play or etc. Or I keep going. With me, he was like, either we play at the start for 50K, and that actually was one of the two most toxic things that was hardest for me to dispel because I thought about it actually. I like would be down to play under different circumstances. Like I'd be down to play a supervised online match, but there were reasons that I clearly saw that he was not acting in good faith, and something was very very wrong here. And the fact that people didn't see that at first, the fact that people were like, okay, but like this sounds like you're making excuses for not playing. Like, no, he's literally saying unless I beat him by the equivalent of our online score, which is like heavily in my favor, like even if I win the match, he will like his behavior will not change. And the other big like not toxic idea is okay, I agree that at the GM level, OTB and online chess might not be like that different. I mean, they are very different, but the difference should not like radically change your results. Like it's like if you're 2100 blitz OTB and you've got like 8 out of 11 in Title Tuesday, like okay, like I think you should be investigated, yes. But just compare the number of games that you play OTB and online. One tournament cannot be the litmus test for cheating. Like if I do badly in the World Blitz Championship and I'm playing it for the first time, in what world can that be then used to explain? I don't know how many online games I've played, like 50,000? Like you're taking a 10 game sample to explain cheating over the course of 20,000 games? I mean, that I think is where the madness is. It's like one OTB tournament can never be used as like a clear proof of anything. And I feel like I'm in a completely indefensible position when I have to like perform well on one particular day for like a particular 30 minutes. And if I do perform well, the goalposts shift again, just like they did when I played the American couplets. It's only 5 games. Bobby, I mean, you beat me in that tournament. You're
But
scary to play in Blitz OTB. It's a lot different.
no, it's definitely different. Also, I think like a big distinction is increment or no increment. I think for me, this is like the most clear-cut distinction. Okay, there's also a difference between 1 second and 2 second, but I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a far lesser difference than having no increment. I mean, if we play bullet just 1-0 with no increment, I basically don't think I have a chance in hell of even making it a match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very objective statement, and
We played in
probably also
Toronto,
comes.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, over the board, 1 minute without increment, you are also favorite. You beat me over the board. Um, I think that over the board 1 minute is kind of weird because you have
Mm-hmm.
that like messy factor. Uh, but like
PC
three
start flying
minute
at some
online,
point.
I also feel like I would be a significant underdog against you if we played like a long non-increment 3 minute match. While if you had the increment, then I'm much more confident about my chances. But speaking of the American Cup, I think you probably scored 5 out of 7, if I am I
Five and a
remembering
half, I
correct?
think. Yeah,
Five
I
five
drew
and a half out of 7,
Kevlashvili and I lost to you.
which is I mean a good result. I mean, again, not to read too much into like singular events, as you said, it's 7 games is not a statistically relevant sample size, but I never understood like why you became the target, because I always felt like a lot of suspicion about people without even saying any names. I never said any names, maybe privately, uh, but of course there's a lot of suspicion. Probably some of it's wrong, some of it I would assume is correct because obviously there is some cheating. But I never felt this about you because like you have like a very consistent pattern, which is that you are a very strong player. And then in Blitz, you do perform better than in Classical, which is logical. I mean, some players are more comfortable in Blitz than Classical. And without increment, you get stronger, but like very noticeably in Bullet and consistently in 3 minute. Uh, and then in like online 3-2 or 3-1, whatever we play in Title Tuesday, and over the board 3-2, then there's also like a lot of consistency. So it just felt like a very consistent pattern overall, and I never felt like the slightest suspicion, uh, even though suspicion, of course, doesn't necessarily mean anything. But then I was surprised when it like kind of came out, because I thought, okay, of all the possible, cheating targets, uh,
Me?
yeah, it did feel a bit random to me, but then like it got increasingly more clear that okay, he like has this target for whatever reason, and it's kind of singular at this point. It's not like he's discussing, you know, last Title
A
Tuesday there were
hive,
like,
a
yeah,
hive of
like
cheaters.
there's a bunch of weird things. No, it's like this, and then okay, we'll probably get into this, and you can talk about it in more detail. But then we got into like the kind of fourth stage of like what's suspicious. Like we had the statistics, the cap score, the results, the trial by combat, and then we had the eye movement slash
Hmm.
mo hidden monitors in the
Let's call
room.
it the evidence. Like then
That's
the evidence was laid out. Right. Continue.
Yeah, the kind of let's call it like hard evidence, because if
Hmm.
someone was cheating with something that you could see, that would be hard evidence, right? Like a phone in the bathroom. He was a that's like the hard evidence, right?
I think he called
Uh,
it the Terminator. Yeah.
but then okay, yeah, yeah. I guess I'm just curious about like your view on all the multiple monitors and camera stuff.
Dude, this is some of the craziest shit I've ever like came across. This like because of course like when there's the Bishop C8 thing which I want to discuss separately. Christian, like I also don't want to like, take the wheel here too much.
No, no, please do,
Should I
please
just like
do.
talk about this one by one? Okay, so
Yes, and
yeah,
look,
actually yes, yeah.
I don't want it to sound like some sort of questioning situation or
No.
investigation that we're running ourselves. I just want to make sure that by the end of it, we're going to cover basically, or at least as many accusations, let's say, or questions that Kramnik had, so that we kind of delve into everything.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't think of it that way. And you guys are it's not about like what a person genuinely thinks, but you're good faith actors. And obviously like I want to talk about this because I want to expose how fucked up it is on a million levels. And the people on my stream who are like, well, if you had just ignored it, then this would not have become such a big thing. I really, that presses my buttons, because it doesn't press my space bar though, because it just like it's such a disingenuous way of looking at it. I'm not trying to seek attention with this, but the people who are buying into this narrative, they exist at many levels, including at the very top level, and they include a large number of chess fans. Like this is doing very serious damage and actual damage. It's not just like bots or Russian spies who are believing Kramnik. He has a lot of authority. He's a fucking world champion. Okay. And like people say that, but they don't understand what that means and how much authority that gives you. There's like 14 of those guys, and like ever. Okay. So in terms of the like evidence, let's start with the like yesterday I asked Kramnik, can you lay out specifically what are the points that you want me to disprove? And he didn't answer because that is the nature of the shifting goalpost. But if I could pin down like what is the body of evidence? First of all, the eye movements. Okay. So the eye movements exist in two different forms. And now I think that it's taken on three different like specific varieties. The first is based on a game that I played with Kramnik in Title Tuesday that I put out on my YouTube channel, which is one of the many things that makes this kind of a theater of the absurd. The fact that like, okay, so he thinks I cheated on my Twitch stream and then I immortalized that by then asking my editor to put it on my YouTube channel. It's not an argument in my defense. It's just like funny that he never like paused to think about how shameless I would have to be. So Fabi, Christian, you know what I'm talking about, like that game with Kramnik, right? Queen H4
I
check.
think I've seen it. Yes, yes. The Queen H4 was the sexy move. Yeah.
It was the sexy move, and after that, in the same video, he looks at a game with Wesley. But one of the biggest sources of his confusion is that I have two different streaming spaces. Okay, so where I'm sitting right now is my main
I was
streaming
just
space.
about
Yeah,
to ask you
go
about
ahead.
that, because I think this is a new point that he just brought in today's episode, where he talks about you having two very distinct spaces. This one was the one that he used for Levitov chess, and the ones that he's presented in previous episodes
Yeah, it's my home office.
is a different one. Yes.
but it's like my main one, right? So this is my home office. I have a tower, like I don't know, what do you call this computer that's not a laptop?
Desktop.
Desktop. Oh, yeah. So there's like a thing underneath, like the computer itself, and then two monitors and a camera between the monitors and a mic, and a fourth and fifth and sixth monitor that I'll get to. I was trying to joke on the Levitov show. I mean, the guy is so humorless. I was like, let me show all six of my monitors or something like that. And Levitov laughed, and like Kramnik just like stony faced. Well, I don't know what his face was because he was too much of a chicken to turn his camera on. Fabi, I think you had something to say.
No. Actually, I was gonna like mention that like during this whole Levitov interview, I think that you went through like your entire setup, right? You showed everything in your room and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I assume, was not convincing for Kramnik.
No, partially because he's asking me to prove the absence of something, which is impossible by definition. To prove the absence of something is impossible by definition. So that's the third monitor. But he thinks that I have these two spaces for a nefarious reason. I simply have another streaming space. That's the one with like the white wall, right? Where I sometimes like plug in the backlight that's plugged in right now, right here. I just carry it down, and I stream from my laptop. I also use that laptop when I travel, right? When I go back home, for example. And the laptop is plugged into a monitor. And I've shown that setup, and that entire room I've shown as well. And the only reason that I stream from that room sometimes is if my like cleaning lady is here. Or like, you know, if I just want a slight different change of, sometimes I like playing from my laptop because it's a high refresh rate and it's a smaller room so I can focus better. Like everything is ascribed to some nefarious reason, and I'm like, am I a genius or am I an idiot? Like, which one is it? Like, am I James Bond or am I like
I just
Forrest
want to understand.
Gump?
Maybe Kramnik got into this, or maybe he didn't. I assume he didn't. But if let's just assume that a player is a cheater,
Mm-hmm.
why would it make any difference how many playing spaces they have? Like if they have their cheating set, why do they need a different cheating setup, or why do they need one fair setup, one cheating setup? Like what's the logic there if he got into that at all?
Well, he's contradicting himself because first of all, he doesn't realize that my monitor that's I use with my laptop is much smaller. Like my two monitors on my main office is like 34 inches and 31 and a half inches, like really, really big. And it's really comfortable to play and to work on them. And I don't just use it to cheat, right? I use it, just kidding. I don't just use it to play Title Tuesday. See, I shouldn't joke about that, but I can't
This
help it
will
because
be
it's just
taken
too
out of
fucking funny.
context. This will be taken out of context.
The whole situation is too ripe for humor and fucking with people, so I do it, and I'm going to continue to do it. But yeah, all of the jokes are in stock, are still at fish. Horrible. Okay, so the monitors that I have here, I don't carry it up and down to my other setup. I have a different monitor there that's much smaller, and so when he was charging me with looking up when I played Wesley, he uses to illustrate why that's an unnatural motion, a still image from the stream where I talk about my laptop setup with the smaller monitor. So it's like a complete, as you say in Russian, a porridge in your brain. Like and I told him that on the Levitov channel, and he's just like, I didn't do that. I'm like, bitch, I have this. Here is the image from your YouTube video. And he was doing this many times. I was like, you called me a cheater. I never did that. I read out a tweet that he posted. He's like, when did I post that? I said, October 20th, like 12:59. And, you know, like, and his response to that is always, oh, that's not important. Let's move on, which is just insanity. Like, you have a prosecutor who is lying time and time and time again. And every time I demonstrate it explicitly, he is then allowed to just strike that from the record and quote unquote move on. So, okay, Christian, I think I lost the plot. So I talked about the eye movements. Let me say why they're false. Okay, so I have already proven this with an eye tracker video, which I recorded on both of my setups that will be coming out by a Russian chess YouTuber, Maxim Omariev. He has like the originals, and I'm sure that it'll probably trickle down from there. But I used an eye tracker. Thank you to Jan for giving me a link to this eye tracker. And I was like, I'm welcoming any opportunity that I can get to explicitly prove that this is bullshit. Like, people are misinterpreting. Like, I want people to tell me what the test is to prove this explicitly. So that's the eye movements. Like, when I look up, I'm not looking up at the wall Like he thinks there's like a TV on the wall.
That's actually what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
Because
go ahead.
I want to understand his thoughts. Like if like okay, I have my monitor in front of me, and let's imagine that I do have something up there, so
Yeah.
I'm looking at something. Then why is it relevant? Because I saw there was also talk about like a second computer there, or a computer there, or there. Like, why would it matter that you're looking to the
Which one
side in
is
that
it?
case?
There's like
Yeah,
six.
that's my
One is on the
question.
wall, and well, the first
Like,
thing is that on my side setup, or my laptop setup, I'll call it, the wall is across from me. Like I would not be able to see like a small screen that's on the wall. It would have to be like a 77-inch TV. Okay, that doesn't matter. Here, the wall is like my desk is almost flush against the wall. And when he says that I look up, by the way, I'm just looking at like the top half of my monitor. It's like not even close. Like to look at the wall, if I'm sitting like this, and by the way, like I used to have a different chair that was quite a bit lower, but I would have to like make a incredibly unnatural motion. Like it's not even close to where I'm looking. When I'm looking off to the side, I'm looking at my opponent's clock, like on my laptop. He doesn't understand the way a webcam works. Like just because your head is in line with the webcam doesn't mean that when you turn your eyes to the right, you're looking past your laptop. Like, how is that even something you can possibly know or conjecture or even think? But Fabi, then he's saying, as you're saying, that there's a third monitor, and his evidence for that is a particular glance that I made during the speedrun video, right? The famous one, the one where I cheated, quote unquote.
where you're playing weak players, right? This is I'm getting this correct, right? That you're playing players 1200,
Yeah, I think
1300 more or less.
Well, zero, like the speedrun reaches to like 22, 2300, and I've done 4 of the, and like the premise is it's not really a speedrun, it's like a slow run, it's educational.
Yes, and
Like,
actually, that's a very good point that maybe we can stay on for a little bit, because I feel that's at the crux of his argument. The fact that you had, the engine or like chess bays open during that time. I think you even mentioned it, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, this is interesting, actually. The engine, wow, this is really cool. So we'll have some interesting analysis to do after the game. I'm looking at the engine, and actually it's not, it's not arguing. It's arguing against taking the knight on g5. It doesn't believe that it's the fastest path to victory. So, wow, the engine line is crazy. Okay, we have a lot to explore as soon as our opponent abandons this pitiful position. No, I'm looking at the start of the game.
Can you give us your full picture of what happened on that speed run when you supposedly had the chess-based engine on, and you use that assistance to, let's say, explain certain concepts in the opening phase? Can you kind of build up a picture for everybody to understand, everybody that perhaps hasn't watched all of Kramnik's video or all of your previous podcasts?
And by the way, like I want to make it clear, I think there's also a moral question involved here. And like Fabi, if you have a different perspective on the moral question, I don't want to make it seem like I'm not allowing any room for discussion. I think I accept that the optics of this were terrible. And the other thing, the reason it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy is Levitov, like he started by asking me about this thing, and I was caught a little bit off guard. I was like, okay, you're going to get right down to business. And I kind of got tripped up on my words. I'm not as used to describing this in Russian, and like the Russian viewers don't even know what the speedrun is. So like I had a lot of contextual explaining to do. And by definition, it's suspicious when someone tries to like drown you in their like, verbal diarrhea. But the context here, it's not just important, it is the only thing that's important. So the speedrun series I started in 2020 by playing, I started with 5+0, but the second and third speedrun, it was 15+0 and 10+0. I would play longer games, and I would climb the same way you normally do in a speedrun, except I would explain every one of my moves in like the most painstaking logic imaginable. And the intention was to make a series that was like super educational and engaging on the basis of actual games, and B, like it would help a wide variety of players, and you could watch every episode no matter where I was in the speedrun, and different players, like players of different levels, would find different things to benefit from. So like the analysis after every game can take much longer than the game itself, right? I could spend 45 minutes analyzing a game, and I could spend 20 minutes like delving into an opening for like an NM who's watching the speedrun, but then describe like the middle game in a super basic way because I was playing a 900, right? And that was actually the case in the game in question. I was playing an 1100. Now, the game itself was what you would expect from a GM playing at 1100. Although, if you're like, well, I've seen some Title Tuesday games, I'd expect the 1100 to win. No, he hung all his pieces and I won. Okay, that's the summary of the game. However, there was a moment on like move 8 where he played knight f3 to g5. I think I played h6 and he played h4. I think that's called the fishing pole trap, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like by definition, if you're castle to the king side, like hg is going to be risky. Even if like a queen lands on h5, it's a little bit scary. And I wasn't actually totally sure if the best thing to do was to take the knight. And I think I took the knight in the game, and then he hung his pieces and I won. At some point, he hung his queen in one move. He played queen d7. People can watch and can find the exact clip. I'm not going to like belabor the point. I took the queen and I was like, okay, he's going to resign. This is the level at which people usually resign when they hang their queen in one move. But he started to think, and he had something like 7 minutes on his clock. And on that particular night, at like that particular 4 a.m., fateful moment, I did something whose like the significance of this. And the funny thing about this is that I've had so many chances to delete this video from YouTube, right? I could have not uploaded it. I could have deleted it after the initial like blowback came in the form of YouTube comments. Didn't do that either, because it never occurred to me that people could interpret this in such a twisted manner, in what I, respectfully believe is a very twisted manner. I got impatient, and after he started thinking, after I took his queen, I was like, I'm not going to like waste any time. I'm going to quickly take a look at that moment where I took his knight on move 8, I think it was, and I'm going to see what the computer thinks about it. Right. So at this point, it's not entering my mind that this is bad or that this is in any like meaningful way cheating. Why? Because fundamentally in my stupid brain, the speedrun is not like a competitive game. It's not a game at all. I think of it as a lesson. I'm teaching a lesson to a student, right? And when I teach lessons to actual students, I'll have the engine running all the time. Like sometimes we'll play out, segments of games on lead chess, and on my other monitor, I'll be analyzing, like some opening that I'll be showing the student later. Okay, I don't think anybody thinks of that as cheating, right? So what people don't understand fundamentally is like, I view the speedrun, even though it's technically a game, the rating is refunded to my opponent, and I am in Coach Naroditsky mode. It is a completely different like universe from my actual competitive games, where it would never occur to me in a million years to even like touch chess base, much less turn on an engine at any point in the game.
You just said that the rating gets refunded to your opponent. Is this because this is an account that was given to you specifically for this reason by chess.com? Can you maybe drill down on that and explain to people how that works?
Yes. So chess.com allows me to create second and third and however many accounts, one at a time, of course, for the purposes of a speedrun. And every speedrun, whether it's Hikaru, who else, Botez, Hansen, whoever has done a speedrun can do that. And at some point, sometimes after the speedrun is complete or during the speedrun, chess.com will refund the ratings of the people who play me, because, not all of them know, and sometimes very few of them know that they're actually playing a GM. And smurfing is smurfing without the express written consent of the NBA, express written consent of chess.com is, I think, a fair play violation. And okay, I think people can get on board with that. There were a few speedrun accounts that were banned because like I created them and then it took me like a week or so to tell chess.com about it. And it was like an auto ban because I was like 94% accuracy every game. And Kramnik would be like, well, I mean, even if they knew it was Naroditsky, you should still probably ban it. But that's the only reason. Like it was immediately unbanned when they realized it was my speedrun account. So that's the way that it works. Did I explain that clearly?
Yes, and to drill down even more on that banned account, I do think that this was one of his points as well when he posted a screenshot of one of your accounts being banned. Was that a speedrun account? Sorry, I don't have a lot of let's say backstory to that, but I think you just touched upon it.
There was a Reddit post, and it's funny how people immediately like, oh my god, Naroditsky's account has been banned. And people knew it was my account because I was playing speedrun games on it. I think it was Oh My Lands. And I think it's unbanned now. But yeah, I don't know how the auto ban system works, but like if an actual 1100 or 1200 or whatever I was rated at the time had those results, it's like when a person created their account 10 days ago and he's like 10-0. It's like they weren't born yesterday. That's going to like trigger an automatic ban. So that's what I think happened. And, the moment I let them know it was my Speedrun account, sorry for, telling you later. I don't remember if I told them and they had noticed, or I told them like a week after creating the account. It was not nefarious. I can promise you that. Like this was not them knowing that it was my account and them thinking that I had used an engine on a different Speedrun account. Bobby, does that explanation make sense, you guys?
Like honestly, this is one of the things which I was like least interested about, because it sounded like I heard of course the whole thing, and then I was just thinking back. I was like, okay, so Danya is playing 1100s, and this is the proof. This is the smoking gun that he needs the engine to cheat against the guys who blunder all their pieces, with all due respect to 1100s. And also because I understand like the idea was, okay, he's ready to
That's the bigger thing. Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Thing. Sure.
Like Kramnik like made it clear that, okay, he's not saying I use the engine at like, because I didn't use the engine on the live position. I would never do that during the speedrun either, because that's crazy. Like, so just to be clear, I used it at a particular moment on move 8. And I checked that moment and turned off the engine. And then just to like complete that story really quickly, when I put the video out and some comments started coming in, oh, Naroditsky's a cheater. Oh my God, what are you doing? I decided to put an apology note at the top of the video, and I owed every viewer and my opponent an apology because what I did was wrong. End of story. I took responsibility for it. It is a violation. The optics of it are really bad, and it was a stupid, dumbass thing to do. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, except there kind of are. And Fabi, the craziest thing to me and the most frustrating thing was what you're talking about, which is the people using it to suggest a larger pattern. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I could see that's even a point. Like, okay, there's a larger pattern, but you can't see. But I have my laptop here right next to me. I can turn it on anytime I want and cheat during Title Tuesday. Absolutely. Of course, I would never do that. Now, if I'm in your situation where I'm doing some instructional video and I want to analyze the opening of a game, and then I forget that it's still ongoing, or not forget, but I just don't care about the game anymore because I'm up a queen in 3 pieces. And honestly, there's no point in continuing this game. And I turn on the position because I'm interested in the opening. This is not an indication that I would turn on the computer during a tournament game. There's a very big difference. Just because I have the ability, that seems to be the distinction between having the ability to cheat, which of course you do and I do and every grandmaster does, and having the mentality to cheat, if you want to call it mentality, are very different things in my view. So yeah, of course, optics are bad. Like I think you were too nice. I wouldn't have apologized in that case. I think we had a Christian, I don't know if you remember, but 6 years ago in 2018, it was around the time that Danny was asking players if they want to start streaming. So I did about 10 hours of streaming.
Right.
And in one of the streams, it was Title Tuesday. I don't know actually if it was Title Tuesday or not. But Christian, you were in the room. And during one of the games that was more or less over, it was Rook against Bishop. So for all, of course, intents and purposes, it's a draw. Then you started discussing the game while it was ongoing. And then some many years later made a separate video taking our stream and saying I caught Fabiano and Christian cheating because they discussed the game while it was ongoing. Of course, it wasn't even about
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Or like the Magnus thing, right? Where David Howe gives him a move.
Oh no.
Or like tells him he can trap his queen in a meaningless like titled arena game. Magnus is a cheater. Like, fuck you.
No, of course, like it's technically, of course, yeah, you shouldn't say that, and you shouldn't be saying moves during the game.
Of course.
But I'm pretty sure I
GMs
wasn't talking the position that was on the board.
No, it wasn't like it was a technicality. And
that's the thing, right? It's not that it's not wrong. Like you're allowed to call people out, and everybody should be held to the same standard. It's the people who are like clearly mean it in bad faith, or to like drag your name through the dirt.
Yeah, no, the way I see it is more or less like, okay, you're the target, and now we need evidence against you. And since we don't have any hard evidence, it's like I say, okay, you're a murderer. And then you say, well, who did I kill? I don't know who you killed. You killed someone. And then I find out that as a kid, you got in a playground fight with another kid. And then I'm like, okay, well, he has a history of violence. now it's all clear. Like that's the way I sort of view it. It's like that's why I wasn't interested in this. I understood the argument. I understood it was like, yeah, he has the ability. But one of the things is that yes, you have the ability, and not only do you have the ability to cheat, you and I and everyone else can do it in extremely easy to hide ways, in which you don't need to hide your eye movements. There are
Hmm.
apps which you can be shown arrows on
Hmm.
your board with the best moves, and these are pretty easy. I didn't even find out about this myself. I was told about this and
Hmm.
shown like screenshots of basically how it would look, where you can be streaming and it shows arrows on the board,
Hmm.
and so one of my
I
things was like, why
not to
all these
interrupt.
sort of easy to determine methods? Like, he's looking around the room suspiciously when anyone with a hint of technical acumen can just
Hmm.
install an app and then cheat undetected forever.
Yeah, like, am I a dumbass or am I James Bond? Like, make up your mind, dude. And you know what's crazy is that, sorry, Christian, if you wanted
Go
to say
ahead,
something
go
or
ahead.
Fabio,
No, I was
I'm
just I was just going to point out that you are looking to the side right now, and I just wanted to make
yeah.
sure that Stockfish is not open.
Stockfish is not open. I was opening my game history from that day. So ChessBase saves your game history, and I don't want to like have to define every term. It's like a record of some of the games you looked at on a certain day, and it goes back as essentially as far back as you had ChessBase. So it's a great feature to like recover. I was writing a new in chess article, opening article once, and I had six like heavily annotated games, and like my ChessBase crashed, and I like the database disappeared or what? Like I lost everything, and I recovered a little bit of it with game history. It's a good feature. So the first thing I did was, oh, well, this is easy to resolve. So first of all, there's the argument about um technically being able to cheat. I'm like, do you guys not have ChessBase? Like, is it weird to have ChessBase on my other monitor? And they're like, well, it takes time to open ChessBase. That's a lie. ChessBase is already open during the speedrun because this was the second game. To talk about the first game, I pasted into ChessBase, and they're like, why would you need to do that? I'm like, well, I'm checking the opening with like Megabase, and I'm like looking at moments with Stockfish, and like, why aren't you using the chess.com Stockfish? And I'm like, well, that's because I don't have access to the engine evals on my Speedrun account. Every question I have an explanation for because it's the truth. Then they're like, well, it takes more than like 2 seconds to do all of that and open up Stockfish, but that's because there was a 20-second clip edited out by my editor. Just because he edits out like longer segments where my opponent is thinking that are boring from like my YouTube channel. And I tried to find the original, but I couldn't because it's like 3 months ago and he didn't have it either. But to show that indeed I had entered the moves into ChessBase, I pulled up my game history from that day, and I actually found the exact segment where I enter the moves in. And I said, let me show you the game history. And suddenly Kramnik's like, no, 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 it's okay. You don't have to. Right. So this is where the gaslighting comes in. I'm not using the word correctly. It's like when I am like that close to showing how much of an asshole you are and how cruel what you're doing is, suddenly you just like push it away. I also demonstrated that I could enter 8 moves and turn on Stockfish in like exactly 20 seconds. And then he commented that it was 24 seconds, which it wasn't. And like, this is the level to which this is descending to. I also found my game history from the day that I played or did not play Bishop C8. And that's not good enough either. That's 2022. So my history was saved on the cloud. But just to conclude my thought, the analogy Levitov made, that's such a damaging analogy, and I think how other GMs are thinking about it, some other GMs, is that I stole a pack of gum from a store when I was a kid or whatever. Does that make you more likely to steal like a TV from a store or a computer from a store a couple of years later? And probably like if you stole a pack of gum for no good reason, and you're an adult and someone stole a TV 5 months later, you're probably statistically more likely, yeah, to be a suspect. But I didn't steal a pack of gum. I think the analogy is damaging because from a moral perspective, what I did was bad because it's a violation and the optics are bad. But it would never occur to me, even during a speedrun game, to look at the engine in order to help my play. It's not even about who I'm playing. I've played many cheaters on the speedrun. I would never like turn on the engine because I think they're cheating. That's insane.
Actually, I
So
wanted to bring up that
does that
point
make sense
because
to me, to you, Fabi?
it,
Yeah.
it's actually something I've heard before from people who don't consider it cheating, grandmasters, and I would consider it cheating for sure. when a player who thinks their opponent is cheating, then they start to cheat in retaliation during the game, but without having certainty.
This is obviously
Right.
cheating. Let's
But
just put it
no,
out.
it's
This
obviously
is obviously
cheating. But a lot of people don't consider, so they're like, it's what you just mentioned. Yeah, it's like, is it? But that I think is pretty clear. And also a lot of people who are kind of suspicious of cheating, they have this tendency, and then that's why I think like sometimes suspicion of cheating can morph into that. Um, Although I do hesitate to say that, because like when I was like last year, I was saying some things like I'm very suspicious of people, and I gave some numbers, and then everyone called me out. And then some people
Uh-huh.
said, "Oh, well, how do we know that he's not like he's suspicious of cheating? Maybe that's because he is himself cheating." So
Ooh, turn it on you.
yeah,
It
yeah,
comes
they
after
turned it
you,
on me.
like the Inquisition,
Um,
right?
but like I've heard stories from strong players about strong players, pretty much firsthand accounts where like a strong player will have this perhaps even correct suspicion that someone cheats, and then they will turn on an engine to protect themselves, perhaps, or to retaliate, or whatever, however they view it.
There's public
Um,
admissions of this from I don't
I
know
think
if it's appropriate to mention.
Talbaran is basically one of the first guys that
Well,
got
do
busted for
Albert,
cheating, and
the guy was
that's
like
what
the
he said he
most
was doing.
prolific cheater. I mean, if we're speaking of cheaters, like the guy was cheated, banned, cheated, banned, admitted to it, was reopened, cheated again, and then made like some bizarre videos trying to explain the whole situation. But like, okay, obviously we're off topic, but I
Well,
think that
I
was
mean, Dubov mentioned it, and I I think that there's a separate discussion about what different types of cheating. But first of all, that is cheating. Okay, there's no question about it. The moral questions of okay, how bad is this, or like who do we need to punish and what should the punishment be? That's like a separate discussion, which is legitimate. But the double standards are crazy to me. Like when these public admissions were made, the same host is laughing at one person and saying, well, that's not really, nobody would consider that bad, right? And that's totally okay. That's you're human. And then now I'm being raked over the coals over this I don't know, is the most innocuous possible example you could think of, which I'm still taking ownership of. And I'm not expecting people to say, oh, look, Daniel, you're so exemplary for apologizing for this. No, it was stupid. It was wrong. And it has never happened before or since. But, the wickedness of this is incredible. And some GMs telling me to my face that because of this incident during the speed run that I'm putting out for free and have done for thousands of hours, and I start an episode at 4 a.m. sometimes after 5 hours of streaming. You're not going to give me any grace for this? Really? I'm mad about that.
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
since you
I
go
like don't
ahead,
view it
Fabi.
somehow. Maybe my perception is just different from others. I didn't really see. I thought about it even. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to think about the other viewpoint. Um, where the idea is that yeah, that having the willingness to have the engine on at any moment means that it's more. But I thought about it, and I really didn't get that impression, because I also thought about like how I played Title Tuesday. It's like uh, my phone is there, my computer is there. Of course, I'm not looking at them, but maybe someone would see that and think, okay, this is not professional, and think, wow, that's suspicious, that I even have my phone and my computer in the same room as my laptop in the same room as my desktop, and that I'm playing a tournament. Of course, the thing is like all this online chess, in my view, is just really not like we don't take it seriously. And so if we're not taking it seriously and implementing very clear rules, which I think in the future we should, um, because like obviously some cheating goes on, and there's really not much protection against it. But if we're, sometimes Magnus is playing drunk with other people in the room. It's also not a serious tournament situation, right? Uh, I played against him when he was actually it helped me out because he was blundering pretty badly, but
Yep.
he was in Vegas or something, and it was during Tile Tuesday. Like these are not serious tournaments. Not that I'm saying that you can cheat, of course, but uh, if we don't have a serious atmosphere, then we shouldn't be reading too much into completely innocuous things, is what I'm trying to get at.
But to be honest,
Yeah.
I don't think you can go to 100% seriousness in Title Tuesdays, just for the simple fact that it's such a regular event. There is no two-camera implementation like you see it in the Champions Chess Tour, so it's kind of like a completely different
Mm-hmm.
setup, right? People
And
don't expect you to
yeah.
cheat, but don't expect you to, let's say, play it in a very serious manner, such as the Champions Chess Tour, where you need to have 2 cameras to be able to participate in it, because
But
there's
do they
real money at
expect
stake.
people not to cheat? My impression at this point is that the expectation is that you do play a cheater in a Title Tuesday at some point in time.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
it's weird if you don't.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
my impression talking to people, and also even my own perhaps bias is that I'm probably going to play a cheater. I mean, I might get lucky, and I'll never
And
know for
hopefully,
sure.
hopefully that cheater gets banned, right? Gets found and banned.
Yeah, I'm not
Yes.
sure. Not sure about my hope there.
And it's like I agree, and I think it like this is what makes this ironic. I was also kind of on Kramnik. I think we need someone who is pushing the boundaries of the discussion, and takes and we can't sanctify the chess.com algorithm. We need dissenting voices. And on some topics, maybe they need to take their head out of their ass, and it's okay to say that. It's like we need to move the discussion forward, and this is an incredibly complex topic. However, and if they wanted to make Title Tuesday serious, I'm more than happy to have 2 cameras every time. Like, if you wanted to turn this into like an exemplary, serious online event, I think it would deter cheating. And I hate the idea that it's like just as easy to cheat when there are 2 cameras. I think it raises the barrier of entry, right? Like by a lot, which is pretty effective. It doesn't
It
eliminate
does make it
the
harder for
possibility.
sure. I mean, it's still like it's still definitely possible. I mean, in terms of technology, the sky is pretty much the limit. I would assume at this point. But yeah, for sure, it at least like weeds out the kind of easy cheating, I guess, if you want to call it that, right? The kind of mindless
Mhm.
stuff that perhaps some people do. Again, I
Yeah,
don't
having a
know.
laptop and entering the moves and like
Yeah, well, that would be
old
the like
school.
the yeah old
That's what
school.
he thinks I'm doing, right? On a third monitor. I have a funny story from yesterday. If I'm dragging this out on too long, then let me
No, no,
know.
No,
go ahead.
please go ahead.
So when I was demonstrating, like, this is the third monitor. Why does he think of a third monitor? It's because of one glance that I made during that speedrun video. He paused it and he's like, "You're not looking at the right monitor. Like when you look at the right monitor, this is what you look at." And he shows me a different still where I'm looking at the left side of the right monitor. But in that particular still, I'm looking at the right side of the right monitor, which is at the edge of my desk. Like, I don't remember exactly how. And this is the problem. Like, my chair is in a slightly different place. My camera is in a slightly different place. I shift my setup all the time. I can't reproduce it one for one. In any case, I have like a 32-inch right monitor. He thinks it's like a 25-inch, and that's like the biggest monitor one could have. In any case, I'm saying this, and Levitov is like, no, you're clearly not looking at the monitor. I'm like, asshole, I know what I'm looking at. This is crazy. This is like a witch trial. That's literally what I said. This is a witch trial. And I want to share one example at some point from because I wrote my senior paper on the Salem witch trials, which is a little bit ironic, and I keep mentioning it. I don't want to beat people over the head with it, but I'm passionate about it. So I open up ChessBase, I show them where I'm looking at, and they're like, "That's not where you're looking at in the video." I'm like, "It's literally exactly where I'm looking at." I'm like, how far is this going to go? Like, is this actual evidence? Because in the 1600s, they admitted spectral evidence. There was a 200-year debate over when you have witchcraft trials, do you admit spectral evidence, which is evidence from dreams? So John Smith, the farmer, no pun intended, could have said, "I dreamed that Kate Smith visited me in my sleep and, like wore a black robe and tried to get me to sign the devil's book. She is a witch." And during the Salem witch trials, that was admitted as evidence of witchcraft, someone's dream. It's like, dude, do you guys, are you picking up what I'm putting down here?
It sounds
Yeah,
like
no,
when the wife accuses you of cheating in her dream, and she gets upset at you in the morning, and you're like, "What did I do wrong? You cheated in the dream." And I was like,
we've all been there, I guess.
Oh my god!
You guys
Toya.
You guys don't have
What
wives.
was your
so you
ex
don't know.
again? What was your ex's name again? Like, was it Nancy?
Yes.
No, but I would actually pose a question to Vladimir. And again, I do want to say to Vladimir in general, like I think he kind of hinted at like some personal things, like like he feels bullied or he feels like, which actually I do think that when it comes to like anonymous online people, they can be bullies, to a large extent, and it doesn't help the cause at all. Like if someone is wrong, then making fun of them will not help them see that they're wrong. And it also started like I think even in times when he was saying reasonable things, that he was
Oh
getting
yeah.
a lot of like you can call it bullying or just being made fun of, which I didn't really like it. I thought like, okay, I mean, he is one of the greatest players in history, and uh, at this point, of course, clearly he's saying a lot of things which are very wrong and also unfair. But a lot of times I did feel like the internet was just making fun of him because it felt like an easy target. But in terms of like what I would ask him is that does he really think this is is or should be considered evidence that someone
No, it's their
glances?
questions. Where were you looking at?
But even questions, if he wants to call it questions, what like that I glanced to the side for 2 seconds
During a
once
speedrun game?
last. Yeah, like does this real is this the bar that we want to set? I mean, everyone has their own body language during a game. Sometimes it looks unusual. Like Arjun, I don't know if you've seen how he plays classical chess over the board. He's like staring into the distance.
Me too.
Hikaru
Yeah,
looks
I'm looking everywhere. It's like
yeah,
ADHD
it's
thing. I do that every over the board game.
no, I mean everyone has body language, and when it comes to over the board chess, of course, there's not really any questions because we can see where people are looking. I understand if he can't see your atmosphere, okay, he gets this thought in his head, but logically, this cannot and should not be considered any sort of evidence.
What about
Maybe
Petrosian? Sorry, I just wanted to plant that thought in your head because it's sometimes used as a rebuttal. I won't interrupt you again.
no, that's I mean, I understand, but they did not determine that based on just a glance, right? Like there were a lot of other factors that chess.com used to determine that. In that case, the case that you mentioned, which I don't want to get into too much, but um, like a glance alone is not indicative in my view. If it's like constant glances over years and years and years and always consistently in the same place, okay, sure, that at least then we can talk. But like this really feels like just reaching for straws, in my opinion.
And I'm proving it with eye tracking data. Like it's not like I'm denying, like, how dare you ask where I'm looking? I'm saying, well, I can't account for glance number 16. That glance could have been at, and I said yesterday on the Levitov show, like maybe Queen Elizabeth like walked up the stairs, right? Like maybe that particular, you're cornering me, right? Because like that particular, like, trying to catch me in a lie artificially, and I want to share that segment from one of the trials in a second, but and Christian, I know I don't mean to impinge on your guys' schedule
no, absolutely not.
Or your ability to talk. So please, I'll let you share your point.
I think we should continue in a natural flow for as long as possible, or as long as we need to cover pretty much everything. I feel like this again will hopefully stand the test of time and will cover pretty much all the questions.
I really appreciate that. I think he's accusing me of being antagonistic and essentially planting the seeds of a bad faith conversation, which is like actual gaslighting, I think, in its proper usage. He also accused me of having a personality disorder, ironically. And after looking up the term gaslighting yesterday, like you can't make this shit up. So I said, I can't like account for glance number 16, but I can tell you that like 90% of those were literally still looking at my computer. I often look at my opponent's clock, right, during any game. Just like that's just like a place I look at. And one of the things that this has done is maybe question my sanity. Like I don't have the metacognition of my pattern of glances. I don't even know where I'm looking at half the time. I'm not necessarily looking at the like theater of action. If I play e4 takes d5, I'm going to look at that pawn to execute the move. But on any particular millisecond, I could be looking anywhere. So like I do that, and he says to me, no, you're looking at a third monitor. So I say, no, I'm actually looking at my screen and I can prove it. He's like, no, you're looking somewhere else. So I'm saying, you're saying I'm looking at a third monitor. No, I never said that. Like it literally reaches this level where he will say something and 5 seconds later, he will say he never said it and then claim that he's just asking questions. Then I say, okay, Vlad, what are the success conditions, right? Because for a prosecutor who's asking a question or interrogating, you need to outline the conditions under which you can disprove his non-assertions or non-accusations, right? And he literally doesn't respond to that. He's like, until you provide me an answer that I am satisfied with, that is his answer, actually. Like, I will keep repeating these questions and I demand an answer. So not only is this repugnant and despicable and just loathsome on the personal level of like, who the fuck are you? That first of all, to talk to me this way. And yes, Fabi, like I really want to take a moment to concede the point that he was not treated well in the initial stages of his campaign. And I think that, you know, online bullies bear some brunt and for not according world champion. This isn't like the ghost of Capablanca, right? People pretending that he's like 80 years old. He is someone who dominated the chess world very recently. He is a voice that should be heard. And I'm not going to speak for chess.com. Like, I don't know what went on between them. I wasn't part of the process, which is what I told him, which is where he revealed that this is pure vengeance. For he knows that I was uninvolved. But, and content creators or whatever, like, yeah, I think that they maybe fan the flames of this, and that's unacceptable and should be called out. And I'm sorry that he had to go through that, but that does not mean that in any way justifies an act of what I believe is evil at this point. A sustained effort to like assassinate my character that he undertakes as part of like vengeance. I think there are other ways to express your dissatisfaction.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you clarify that? Because I think this is a comment that he made yesterday in Russian language on Levitov Chess, that this was basically like started as vengeance and he was somewhat upset. And this is me reading from a translation I've noticed on, I think, Reddit. He felt he was bullied by the English-speaking world, very closely tied to the chess.com and to his team, and for that reason he sort of started this whole crusade. Or could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, like
your discussion and your interaction with him on Levitov yesterday.
When we were going back and forth on like quote unquote who started the bad faith dialogue, he was like, well, you started by accusing me of slanderous lies, and don't pretend like you're some, he called it defender of human rights, which is a weird phrase, because you were the one like gleefully watching Hikaru cuss me out and, feed the flames of online bullies during the Tuesday stream after you pranked me, which is like the biggest bullshit ever. I had like 6 cameras on that stream. Fabi, I don't know if you're aware of that, but that was a very dark day.
Fabi
I like pulled an all-nighter. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I actually didn't.
Oh my
I
God.
might have seen something on Twitter about it, but I didn't really
That's-
see
I'm sorry,
it.
the
I
problem.
didn't mean to
This-
suggest like, oh, I'm so important, you should have like abandoned
no,
your
it's,
US championship game.
That's the
I
thing.
did like see some of the Twitter stuff surrounding the whole thing, but I didn't actually watch the video.
It's also very difficult to sort of keep track of everything because everything happened in the last 2 weeks during the US Championships. I was doing commentary like 6 hours a day, and obviously the preparation that goes into that as well. And then
This is
Fabi
an
was
epic
playing.
story.
So sorry if we're like missing key details in that regard.
Yeah, I think sorry, 1 second. Give me like 10 seconds.
Hey, don't check the sockfish, please. Don't.
Oh, how did you know that's what I'm
Or are
checking?
you using
I have a pattern of doing it.
ChatGPT to answer the question?
Okay, so I'll tell you after the show. But okay, so on Tuesday or on Monday night, this was, what day is it? This was this past Tuesday. Holy shit,
Today's
that's
Saturday.
like 5 days
Yeah,
ago.
it's been all very recent. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So his tweets were escalating and I got fed up and I'm like, listen, I'm going to set the record straight. I'm going to have 6 different angles. And I streamed from my side room because it's just easier, smaller room, easier to capture the whole space. So I went and bought on, my own dime, and I didn't mind, 2 camcorders. And, I went I had a dishwasher getting installed that day. So like I pulled in all night. I didn't sleep at all on Monday. And I went to Lowe's at 7 a.m. I've never gone to Lowe's once in my life. I felt like such an adult, except I'm setting up for an title. I'm standing there while Karen and Bob are looking at refrigerators next to me. And I'm preparing for a Title Tuesday stream where a former world champion is going on a tirade against me on Twitter. This whole thing is so absurd. So I set all of that up, which is hard, right? I had another laptop filming me from the front. I had my streaming camera that I'm using right now, which is a little blurry because it's the lens is broken. But I had that from the back. I covered every angle, and I started Title Tuesday at 9:59. I started the stream. I was exhausted. I was upset, but I was I'm going to set the record straight once and for all. I'm going to make it my mission to do well in this tournament, and I did. I got 8.5 and could have gotten 9.5. I beat Duda with black. I beat Min Lee. I beat a bunch of GMs. But halfway through the stream, my chat starts going crazy in between the games, of course, because emote only. Kramnik starts tweeting. First of all, he's like, oh, it would be nice if Danya did a stream with 2 cameras. Then he says, thanks. I'm like, okay, this is going to put everything to rest once and for all. Now, he's deleted some of the worst ones, but here is a record of his tweets on that day. October 22nd at 12:22. Tuesday starts at 11. Chat is on during game again. Then, what rezob for showing it later? Now, NOW capitalized. Danya, show it now capitalized, or we understand it accordingly. What is he talking about? The point is that out of the corner of one of the cameras, you could see the laptop that was filming me from the front. The screen of that laptop was black. And it had never occurred to me to think that he thought that I would still try to cheat in that tournament and use like what a readout from that laptop to make moves. Like this was so absurd that I like didn't even think of it. So immediately when he mentioned the laptop, I showed that, yeah, there was a laptop filming me. The screen was always black. It just had OBS on. And I thought that was the end of it. But Kramnik continued, and he's like, the point is Scat during stream chat asked him to show that he showed from far a Nudger computer standing facing him, screen dark, pretended his computer filming him. Chat asked him showing the screen to prove. After showed refused this computer from close, didn't tell anything about this computer before some noticed it. There were like 15 tweets while I'm playing Title Tuesday. And then he puts out a video, I think called that This Is Weird. Only thing that's weird is your face. I'm just kidding. It was a 9-minute video where he claims that I basically insinuates that I use the computer to cheat. And when he discovered the presence of this computer, I came up to it in order to disable, presumably, the cheating program, right? Except I had just come up to the computer to make sure that it was still filming me. But one of my other devices was my phone, which was filming like part of the room. And by accident, the phone happened to capture the monitor of that computer. So like I responded to that video by putting out a tweet. Like the only time I've ever responded to a tweet, I published on my other YouTube channel footage of my phone showing me walking up to the computer and showing that nothing was actually displayed on it. But this is like the level of madness that this is descended to. And to that, he responds by saying, you pranked me. I'm taking down the YouTube video. This is a chess.com prank. Like, you're very nasty. Your behavior resembles that of a child. I cannot engage with you in good faith.
Did you discuss this with him during the Levitov chess interview?
Yeah, because I had agreed to like have a dialogue with him. But after that stream, I texted Levitov and Ilya understood. And I said, listen, this guy is out of his mind. He is. I mean, I'm sorry, but he is completely out of his mind. And apart from that, he is behaving in a manner. He is treating me better than he would treat a wild pig. And I told him that to his face. Again, maybe he should have turned his camera on. And I cannot engage with someone who is acting this maliciously, because like no amount of reason is going to ever make him stop. And, you know, like once I started the episode with Levitov, I kind of said, okay, I mean, at this point, I just want to be left the heck alone. So I relented and, you know, Kramnik came on. And now I see that it made exactly zero difference. Sorry, that was quite a story. Did I make sense?
Yeah, no, that made perfect sense. Fabi, do you want to latch on to any of those?
The only thing I could think was again, it was like if you just kind of step outside yourself for a second, like let's say I'm talking about Kramnik, that he thinks that you're cheating, and he just steps outside of it for a second and just looks from the side and thinks, is this really the way someone would cheat, a strong grandmaster, that they have a laptop in the other part of the room, but they also look to the side where the laptop wouldn't be, or sometimes they look up? Like, it doesn't have any consistency. Again, it does feel like it got a bit personal for him, or perhaps very personal, and then he just doesn't like think about the logic of what he's saying, which at this point I'm not following the logic anymore. I'm just trying to look at it from his point of view. I just don't follow the logic anymore. And if it's personal, I just want to speak to the point you mentioned about chess.com and Kramnik, because again, I don't have any insight into their relationship. All I know is that at the start they were talking and he was giving his concerns and they were listening, and at some point they hit an impasse. That's my understanding of it. Basically, they had a disagreement and there was just no progress being made to the point that they no longer talked about it. But then it clearly bittered to the stage that, yeah, he views chess.com as an enemy. Now, I'll admit that chess.com can't be right about everything, and I would think that they underestimate the extent of cheating.
I agree.
Online. but I don't see them as an evil party. I've said that before. Like they can be wrong. I just having dealt with them, but also I like felt a little bit like I didn't because we got brought into it totally randomly on Twitter. Basically, someone said like you should get on the podcast, and then he said more or less that would chess.com allow them, as though I need any permission from chess.com
We're part
or
of the
anyone
chess
else,
mafia, apparently.
or that I even get paid, which is not the case, aside from prizes, which everyone, gets paid according to their results, including Kramnik, right? He's also taken money from chess.com for his results in tournaments, which is not a bad thing. But yeah, obviously, and I was thinking like when you don't know the foolishness behind something, then you can maybe be persuaded. But when you can like clearly see the foolishness, and in this case, obviously knowing that we have no affiliation with chess.com, aside from I think we get revenue share like sometimes $20 a month occasionally when people sign up through our affiliate link.
Right.
Ah,
Right. Yes.
gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's what's behind
I
this.
definitely need the couple
You
dozen
should
dollars.
not have said that, Favi. You should not have
No,
said
but
that.
that's on the videos, right? I think that maybe he got an idea that we actually get any sort of like significant money from this.
Well,
Obviously,
to be honest,
I
that's
mean, Christian,
okay.
you know
Just
better.
yes, just to kind of
Hmm.
be very frank and open about it. We used to sometimes have this little chess.com logo on some of our podcasts. That's
Ah,
mostly because they were occasionally helping with the editing. Right now, we have our own team, so we basically kind of, separated ourselves from their help. But I thought it was just fair whenever they help with the editing and putting together some of our episodes that we just display that little logo on some of our videos. So that's the extent of it. We never actually received.
But we don't have to defend ourselves. I mean, even if we even if
yeah, like why is this suddenly accepted? Like again, this is like buying the premise that it's some sort of evil, like even the idea that this is some sort of evil conglomerate is just like what?
No,
And this is yeah, it doesn't mean they act perfectly or even well. Like it's like there's quite a jump from one to the other, right?
but just like since I mean, we do know them. We do know the people
Yeah.
behind. Like they can easily be wrong uh,
Mhm.
about any particular thing. But there's a big difference between being wrong and being either malicious or evil. Like that's definitely a stretch. And you can also accuse them of being a monopoly. And actually like you would have a very legitimate case perhaps in that sense. But there's still a difference between being a monopoly and being a monopoly that is evil or nefarious. Those are different things entirely. But then I was also like, okay, I mean, if you're going to say that we aren't willing to have you on or we're not allowed to, which is even more absurd. When we already had you on and we were the first to have you on to discuss these things
For
on
like
like
2
English
hours.
language platforms. Uh, and then we also got shit for having you on, right? And I'm like, okay, damned if you do. Um, and I think we gave him a completely like open platform basically to just say whatever he wanted for 2 hours, which I don't regret that at all. I mean,
I
uh,
think that's fine. I mean,
no, I mean,
it
like
should be
he
an
spoke his
open,
mind. We did
Totally.
not
open field.
endorse or deny that, we were, it wasn't like a debate or anything, but it also wasn't an endorsement. Um, but yeah, it obviously like what you're saying is not fair if you're saying that we're like part of this. Okay, we talked about the chess mafia.
Now,
Yeah.
to
And
build
like
up
we're
on
all part of it. Yeah, you are part of it. Hikaru, I'm like we're completely separate entities, all of us.
Hmm.
And anyway, that was just my thing about chess.com and Kramnik. Like, I'm sure he has his
Yeah.
reasons why he's upset, but again,
Hmm.
they don't follow logic, I think.
should we
They
stay on
do
this
seem to
topic
be.
of incentives and alignment
Well,
and
I have one
prize
thought on
money
that,
and
but your call.
go ahead,
No, go
and
ahead,
I'll
please.
I'll continue after.
I can understand like if you want to like avenge chess.com, I like the Russian community thinks of me like firmly as like the face of chess.com. I don't know. This is not like an official title. Like in Danny's the CC chief chess officer. And to me, like I don't think of this in these grand terms. Like I'm a commentator. And that skill is separate from chess.com. And like excuse me, but like I started my chess career independently and my streaming career independently. And I am very grateful for the opportunities chess.com has given me. I have a great relationship with them. And I love the fact and deeply privileged that I can further the noble cause of spreading chess to the masses with the aid of chess.com and like the things they did in Paris. You know, they are, I think, on the forefront of a lot of very positive trends. However, it's like yesterday I came on Levitov and I said, well, in regards to like online cheating, I think they do need to get their heads out of their asses a little bit and be a little bit more receptive to dissenting takes. In the chat was like, whoa, Naroditsky's criticizing chess.com based. It's like, do they think that Danny is holding a knife to my throat and like I can't say the word Lichess on a coverage? Like, this myth has really, I think, metastasized to like the grassroots, especially like Eastern European, you know, like the conspiratorial thinking, which is rife to begin with. So it's not a crowd that you really need to convince. But I think that the incentive would make sense from like a vengeance point of view. What doesn't really make sense to me, and only makes sense by like ascribing, you know, deep moral bankruptcy and cruelty to someone, is I told Kramnik, I said, listen, I told Levitov or Kramnik, and he was on the call yesterday. I said, you know, I can understand some of the qualms that he has. I can look past the delusion that he is spreading. I can forgive him for the slander and making it personal. And we will never agree on the chronology of events, but I'm willing to shake hands. I said that to him. I'm willing to shake hands and, you know, and work on a new, more wholesome reality. If you leave me alone, all I ask is that you stop putting out the videos and tweets. And that's basically my only demand. Like, he doesn't even have to stop asking questions. Like I said, I am happy to answer your questions on a podcast. Like I would be happy to do a second episode, provided that you show remorse for what you did, maybe. But the only serious non-negotiable demand, stop putting out the hate and the slander. And his response to that 5 minutes later was another tweet and another crazy unhinged video this morning. And I said that you're causing me at this point physical harm, because, you know, my health has been affected by this, my emotional health, and my physical health. Like, I can't sleep, you know, like I'm feeling the effect of this. My blitz rating dropped, which is not the most important thing. I'm getting some of it back. But, you know, the people saying that he's not reaching anybody and he's just a man shouting into the distance, this isn't like Billy Bob on the street corner, you know, preaching. This is a person with influence and reach who is being propagated by titled players. And I'm not blaming them for like buying his bullshit. It's like, I understand his reach is wider than people realize that it is. And it's about principle for me. Like, I didn't win Title Tuesdays because I have decided to like put my morals above, you know, a desire to like make some cash. And somehow I'm the one paying the price for this, which is not fair. And for me, it's principle. Like, I did not cheat. There's one truth, and I want to prove myself because I don't want a single person like thinking something that's untrue. And if that makes sense.
Yes, and I think you touched upon a very important topic, and that is the topic of incentives. And this is generally what I look at first whenever I'm trying to gauge whether somebody has indeed cheated or not. The incentive is obviously one of the main incentives that a lot of people abide by is money. And I see a lot of people that have won a lot of money in Title Tuesdays throughout the years in online chess, because there's public lists of this type of people. And a lot of them were not attacked, a lot of them with much lower rating than you are. Your name is not at the top of the list in regards to how much money you've made throughout the years from Title Tuesdays. I think you were sitting at, I don't know, maybe you can correct me. I think you perhaps made $3,000.
I was interested in this. So Christian, I did get the numbers up.
Yes.
Oh, I have some too. Okay.
Okay.
Like in terms of
numbers,
earnings,
the exact numbers.
On chess.com, you've earned $101,275.22. I don't know, like, yeah. Okay. So I guess it's not a round number.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot, but it's also bullet champ. So do I cheat in hyper bullet and bullet? Because that's also another reason I thought I was safe from this madness is like, I'm good at 30-second chess, but apparently that's like not an argument at all. I don't know.
No, of course. I mean, like, the thing is, I don't think that, I mean, it's of course good money, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that this is unusual to win for 2650 more or less grandmaster over, well, this is going back to 2014, like, but years, I think there was like almost no money until 2020 to 20, so it's like 5 years more or less, right? I don't think that's like an unusual amount of money. I mean, yeah, if you look at some other players, which I won't say any names because obviously we're not trying to turn this into, who is cheating based on how much money they won, but it's definitely um not among the more unusual numbers of money earned from tournaments, right? And so yeah, I just out of interest brought this up. Of course, it's not evidence uh that just because someone won money that they're cheating, but like for me, it has been one of the metrics that I'm like, okay, I will pay attention more to someone if
Hmm.
they've won like,
It's a red flag, which means you can
yeah.
investigate someone more carefully. It doesn't mean they're cheating and you're saying like that. I agree with Kramnik. You can say this guy's red flags. He needs to be investigated more carefully. He needs to play from a public setting for X number of weeks because of this objective metric, right?
That's
like
one of the biggest
there's
incentives
stages.
to cheat, basically.
Sorry,
I think that's one of the biggest incentives to cheat in general. Just like being able to make a living, more or less.
Yeah, oh no, of course. It's definitely, I mean, it's pretty much the main incentive, right? At least I think that people are incentivized just by not wanting to lose, right? There's that normal human emotion that hates losing in anything, which varies from person to person. Some can handle it better, some can handle it worse. But the second incentive would of course be money. And well, anyway, all of this is public information of who has earned what. In terms of like your bullet performances, I mean, okay, obviously you're like top 5 in the world in bullet. I don't really know anything about 30-second chess. It doesn't have much interest in my view.
Mm-hmm.
But like in terms of 1 minute, I mean, I played the bullet championship. Uh, I obviously can't compete for the top places. And while I got knocked out early, you were getting to either semifinals or playing against guys like Magnus, Hikaru, like Ali Reza, the best of the best, right? So, I mean, obviously your skill in bullet is not up for question at all. And in bullet, of course, you can cheat in bullet, but you can't really cheat in bullet with cameras on you. I think that's like if you cheat in bullet, it would have to be with an app that shows you the moves during the game, right? So with screen sharing and cameras, it's like pretty much an impossibility, at least from my understanding of bullet.
Right. And if someone figures it out, I take my hat off. Like, all right, you deserve it. If you went to such lengths to like contact the FBI, okay, like that level we probably can't stop, but like we're trying to implement common sense measures, and our focus is on money tournaments. Like this is really the most vulnerable aspect of chess cheating. This is where it's most rampant. If like yeah, so but when I tell people like, well, what would my incentives be? People, and this is one of the issues, Christian, if we can stay on this topic, but they're like, well, that's what a cheater would say, or like if I'm too vehement in denying the claims, like why are you getting so worked up? That tells us that this is affecting you personally, so you must have been cheating. If I ignore, why are you ignoring this? You're trying to sweep this under the rug. So no matter what you do, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And it's just like a nasty situation where there will be a group of people who think your behavior is not someone who would be innocent in your shoes would behave like, if that makes sense. Sorry, that was badly phrased.
Oh, that makes
No,
perfect sense.
I
And
agree.
I think the incentive not to cheat for you massively outweigh the incentives to cheat, based on how much money you made, based on public information, but also based on all the other hats that you're wearing within the chess world. That you don't need to cheat to be a good commentator, or if
But
that
I
makes
don't
any
think that
sense.
we need to turn it into like you justifying yourself. Because I don't really think that anything has been presented in which I understand if you feel like you
No,
want to
I
justify
agree.
yourself,
Hmm.
but I don't think that we've even come close to that. Like again, it just feels like a lot of random things thrown at you.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking is not the approach. Like if you have genuine suspicions about online cheating, which is fair, then you should have a consistent scientific approach. And Vladimir does not have a scientific approach. Like it's just a bunch of unrelated. It's like I'm going to throw the camera stuff at you, and then you give an explanation. I'm going to throw the you got 8.5
Bishop
out of
C8.
11. Yeah, or just moves, which yeah, I'm sure you want to discuss that, but
Yeah, because that's the one most people are believing, by the
I
way, just
think
so
we
you
should
know. Mhm.
definitely cover that, and that was
sure.
one of the questions that I wanted to steer the discussion towards. Let's talk Bishop C8. Feel free to get as technical as you want. I'll edit everything and put like a board or anything. So if you want to talk moves, go ahead.
I do.
What's the story behind this bishop to c8? Because I know it was, let's say, shopped around the chess world, and it was shown around to people at the grandmaster and higher level.
So if we want to show a board, should I share my screen?
No. We'll edit it. So feel free to go as technical as possible. We'll follow you in the post-production.
Oh, you'll superimpose editing?
Yes,
I mean, I also want you to, like, on my right side is my chess-based game history from Tuesday the 16th of 2022, August 2022. And
okay.
I see
in that case, I need to set up a new.
No, that's okay. Like, if it's a hassle, then that's okay.
Maybe you could send it afterwards.
I could send it afterwards, but
Okay.
you know,
and we can edit that in.
An unnamed GM is like, well, what's the use of this? Like, you could have deleted a game. And it's like, well, you're just fucked in the head. Like, how many layers of this am I going to do to conceal the fact that, like, I announced a candidate move? So should I, like, lay the, you know, the explanatory groundwork for, like, what the accusation, the charge is?
Yes, please.
So I put out a stream again on YouTube of a Title Tuesday where I did well, and I don't remember how I scored. It was August 6th, August 16th, Tuesday, obviously 2022. And and you can, like, people watching this can watch my YouTube video. You'll superimpose it. I played Vugar Rasulov. I played Vugar Rasulov, I think, in round like 9. I'm actually opening up the video right now. There it is. And of course, it's already like at that moment. Yeah, this
Sorry,
was
just
game.
to interrupt for a second. You said it was August. Which day?
August. Let me confirm that just so I don't, like,
2022 or 2023.
2022. Like I'm just
2022. I'm pretty sure, but let me go on chess.com. Go ahead. Yeah, Fabi. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to, like, see the results, because not out of any great interest, but just for the record. Just to have,
Vugar
like,
Rasulov.
handy.
Yeah, so it was August. Wow, we played more times than I remember. There it is. 2021, 2022, August. Wow, it's funny. I beat him 2 Title Tuesdays in a row, 9th and the 16th. It was August 16th, 2022.
August 16th. Okay.
I got second place that time.
Yeah, I see it. Hikaru got first. Huge shock.
Oh, wow. And actually kind of shocked that I got second.
Like, third place, I don't even recognize Fusik. Jakob Fus. I don't really recognize the name.
I wouldn't make
He's
a big
a-
fuss out of. I
he's-
wouldn't
he's
make
a
a big fuss out of that if I were you. Just kidding.
He's a collegiate player.
Okay.
He goes to UTRG.
Anyway, just for the record, yeah, it was Hikaru first, you're second, and Fusik third place. And the
Yeah,
prizes were
so
lesser back then, yeah?
yeah, this is like the medieval, you know, this is like the Stone Age, right? And what's funny is that the last round I played Paravian and I was like shitting my pants, and, you know, like I wanted to make a draw, and it was a pawn end game, and I made a losing move. And I was just losing in one move in a pawn end game, and he had a minute to 20 seconds, but then he actually managed to lose it. And I was so excited that, like, the next day, or I think I put it in some video. Yeah, I put it in my pawn end game video, which I was preparing that very same day. So on my game history, I see the game with Paravian in ChessBase that I looked at that evening, or even that very same stream after the segment that got put out on YouTube. Anyways, so I play Rasulov in round, so this is 1 hour, round 7, 8, 9, 10, penultimate. And I get a small advantage. And then there's a segment that Kramnik focuses on. And here's what I say during the segment. I'm going to play the segment to myself and then say it. Okay, there it is. So he makes a move. Can I trap his bishop somehow? And I'm thinking, I guess I don't. Bishop c8 is very interesting. And clearly, by the way, I'm looking at the same exact spot the entire time, like at my main monitor. So the cognitive insanity of even claiming that I did something is crazy. But this was the phrase, right? That was interesting. And I found out about this a couple months ago because Kramnik tweeted about this in like a reply to a reply. So I was aware of this. I just never thought it would get blown up. He thinks that the phrase bishop c8 is interesting. Or did I say very interesting? Did I say very? Yeah, I said, see, I don't even know why I said bishop c8 is very interesting. But that's the wording, that's the phrase that is the smoking gun. Okay, am I making sense so far?
Yeah.
Yes.
So after I said that phrase, bishop c8 is very interesting, I played the move h6, which is the most natural move in the position, as every GM would agree, right? So again, to be clear, I didn't even play this move in the game. But the fact that I mentioned it made Kramnik suspicious because bishop c8, which is a retreating move, that is just a move. Like, we can actually get to the move itself. It's just a move. It is the second option, I think, of Leela. And because it's the second option of Leela for some like ridiculous reason, like there's some crazy line there. He believes, like, his theory or his question, one of the possibilities that he, in an open-ended fashion proposes is that I have a Leela on the wall or on a third monitor or up my ass or up his ass. That's probably the version closest to the truth. And that, I accidentally read off the second line of Leela. Like, I accidentally, without realizing it, saw that that was the proposal and then like aired it out, because why would he say that this like weird move is very interesting? And his evidence is that he asked like 10 GMs and all of them agreed that h6 would be their move, which is like, I played that, but also like presumably expressed surprise to such a degree that one GM, and I challenged this person to show his face, said, bishop c8 is enough for me. I don't need any other evidence. Can we all agree that that is biblically fucked up thing to say? Or am I like misinterpreting this?
No, so I actually have maybe an interesting perspective. I'll just say like how I view this.
Please.
Because this was during US Championship. It was before one of the games, and I was with my coach. And then we just saw, okay, this video by Kramnik, and jump through. So first there was a game against Wesley. I can also, like, we can go through that after, but yeah, there was this moment which for Kramnik was clearly the main moment. This was like, he is presenting basically the convincing evidence, bishop to c8. And then we get to this moment. And so my thought was, of course, yeah, it is on its surface a weird move. But I also had this other thought that I'm not looking at the position while playing it. I'm looking at the position from the side. And that really changes your perspective of how you see a position. And the other thing is that also normally during a game, you don't have access to a person's thoughts. So I have no idea what all my opponent's thoughts were. I played Sam Schenkel in the last round. He made some weird moves. I would really love to hear his thoughts about why he made those decisions. I just have no idea because our thinking is different. Not everyone plays the same. Now, in terms of the logic behind the position, so my coach basically thought, okay, bishop c8 gets the bishop out of the way. And the idea was that after bishop to f4, you want to play knight f6 and you don't want to trade on f4. And this is a potential logic behind the position. You want to play knight f6 to d7 to c5. And you don't want to trade on f4, which is a possible logic. It can occur, especially if you're just kind of reading out your unfiltered thoughts in 1 second. Now, the actual correct decision for black is to trade on f4 with the knight and get the bishop pair, which it may or may not be an obvious positional decision. Like, it could be obvious. It could also not be, because it's a somewhat non-concrete position.
It is pretty obvious, but not for me, not for a positionally, challenged player like me. And I'm sure you'll get to that.
I wouldn't say it's obvious, because also to me, the knight on c5 looks tremendously strong. So I would also be tempted to get the knight from h5 to c5 because it really looks strong there. So I wouldn't say that this is like an obvious decision which pieces to trade or where to trade them. And if you had played, for example, h6, bishop f4, bishop c8, that would actually be considered.
It's actually probably the most natural move now that I look at it after bishop f4. It's probably bishop c8 there.
It would be one of those like considered logical moves. Now, perhaps a mistake. From the computer will say it's a mistake, but it would be now from the computer's logic, the position is basically that black should play h6, bishop f4, knight takes f4, and bishop c8 changes nothing because anyway you're going to play h6 and you're going to take on f4, and it actually doesn't matter. Now, like I checked with like modern Stockfish, the third line of the engine is rook to g8, with the idea that you want to play h6 and bishop f4, knight f4, and then eventually g5, so the rook is on g8 and it doesn't change anything. And then I started making random moves like rook to h8, and that one is less accurate because the rook should probably be on the g file. So it's just sort of that position where it doesn't change a whole lot because the computer sees it as you will take. Now, what happened in the game is that you did play h6, you took on f4, and then you took on c3, which is a major positional mistake.
And then I followed up with another inaccuracy, by the way, that made it equal. Go on.
Yeah, so like people don't see the whole game, which is that when I saw the whole game, I played through with a strong engine, and I was like, this is just a random bullshit blitz game. You make a mistake, he makes a mistake, you make a mistake, he eventually won because he blundered a pawn uh, in a position which was already zeros. Like this position is about -2. Strong engine will win this. Eventually became zeros. Not to like be overly critical or anything of your play, but it's
Please.
just a normal blitz game, right? It's just people make positional mistakes in blitz games because that's what happens when you don't have time to think. And so, what is the logic here? That you are cheating, again, not in the same way as before. Now you're cheating by looking straight ahead, and you give away that you're cheating by saying bishop c8, but then you also choose to fuck the game up completely, because why not? And then eventually you win because your opponent makes a mistake in a time scramble. And I was like, okay, is this a convincing argument, really? Like, let's just think about, is this really convincing to anyone?
Could it be that it's
Yes.
considered
Mhm.
smart cheating, like you're trying to throw people who might be inspecting the games off?
No, I mean, of
Yeah.
course it's possible that like I cheat and I play like shit, and then I also say weird things during the game. That is theoretically possible, but again, is it convincing? I don't really think so in my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, first of all, the fact that he's going through every single one of my YouTube videos, like, first of all, thank you. I would like more people to do that. But like, okay, first of all, it's thought, like, this is a serious accusation. Like, it's basically thought crime. And you know what I said on stream is like, am I saying that is there a situation where I would get suspicious of someone saying like X move is very interesting? Yes. And I actually have a great illustration for that. I can send it to you guys later, of like what I consider to be the craziest computer move of all time. And the reason is that like there's a 10 move combination that doesn't work for a reason. So you have to set it up by like playing this move that it's like this move H5 with a pawn in like the crazy position. And if someone had said, oh, H5 is very interesting, and then played a different move, it would never be like the sole evidence, but I absolutely could see a case. Like, I would find that very suspicious. Or if somebody had played H5 for no reason and then like followed up correctly, right? So it's not like I'm trying to shut down the conversation with saying, oh, you're like accusing me of a crime that George Orwell talked about. But in this particular circumstance, like, I was asked to provide an explanation as if anybody who was asking me could ever provide an explanation for a single decision made 2 years ago. And I still tried. Like I said, maybe I can trap the bishop somehow, right? So one explanation that occurred to me is maybe like I'm setting up h6, bishop f4, bishop c3, rook c3, g5, which is like pretty absurd because the white bishop has like d6 and c7 squares, and even b8, by the way, after bishop c8 is played. But again, like at this point, it's at the level of absurdity. So I said this on stream, and Kramnik, of course, uses everything I say to fuel, the like the delusion. Like he's like, oh, like amateurs buy this explanation, but GMs lol at it. Well, I was intending this explanation for amateurs. To the GMs who actually asked me, and there were more than I imagined, because this is like actually taking hold. Jan tweeted about it, and some other GMs asked me about it. It's like, the real reason is I have no freaking clue what was going through my mind at that second. Shimanov also pointed out a good explanation, or a good point to keep in mind, which is that when I stream, and I think Kramnik forgets this point, half of the things I'm saying are either BS that I know are BS, or I'm saying like random stuff that like maybe is like the fourth move of a line, or a move that I considered on a previous move. Like maybe I forgot to say that I'm looking at bishop c8 after h6, bishop f4. Actually, I think that's very plausible. The point is not that one of these explanations is the correct one, right? It's that I don't think that this move is nearly at the bar of a move that would be evidence even if it was played. I mean, Naxon's posted 6 positions where he played bishop c8 in a similar move. I sent a bunch of top GMs a position from a game, Fabi, I mean, you can check it out. I think I sent it to you, where bishop c8 is the move played in the game. None of them even pointed it out. And it's the game Adams-Kramnik, Dortmund, 1999. Now, of course, I'm not saying it's the same thing. I'm trying to illustrate the absurdity of using this as an example, but I'm shocked that it has taken hold. And, I don't know how else I can refute it.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like our bar, as you mentioned, should not be random weird moves unless unless we really think these are just completely unthinkable moves. Now, there are maybe scenarios where, yeah, a move just doesn't occur to anyone ever. I don't think Bishop C8 fits the bill at all. It's a possible move. Like, yeah, it might not come to people's minds, but it could also. I mean, I would like, let's say if you gave this position to like 20 people playing Blitz, 20 strong players playing Blitz, that like, maybe 17 of them play H6, or maybe a move like Knight F6 comes to mind for a lot of people. I also logical move to my view just to get the knight to C5. Or maybe one or two play Bishop C8, and you don't really have much here except it's not the move that comes to everybody's mind most often.
Nor is it
But
the move played,
yeah,
and
also wasn't played, which is relevant as well. Although I don't know if it's really relevant. Like if you had played it, I wouldn't think any much of it either, especially
yeah.
not seeing like the full game. Now, if you played Bishop C8 and then you played like the next 10 moves or like the top engine line and then your opponent resigned,
Mhm.
then at least okay, now we're talking.
That's what he wants you to think. He paused the video right before Bishop C3.
Yeah, he didn't show the full game, which either he didn't see the full game or it's not entirely honest to leave out the entire game. Because if we're presenting evidence, then we need to present the full picture. And so we should present the results of the tournament and the full game, what exactly happened. Like imagine if you had lost this game, which didn't happen, but to be honest,
Could have.
it was a random game that ended in a time scramble, right? So anything
Uh,
could happen.
And it's
Uh,
like, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, sorry, I'm going on too
But
long.
because I'm like I'm in my own head about this, I was playing Andrei Esipenko in a blitz match a couple days ago, and I know that I can play really well. Like I think in dynamic positions, I can rattle off like some computer moves, which is what happens with last. Like some of these people think I'm 1300. Like I am a 2600 GM. It's like if I was an IM or an FM, I kind of get it. But I had a position with like a cool tactic that I just entered my mind, and I messaged Esipenko in the chat like I think this might be this is a move I'm considering, but I'm afraid it's the number one move. And it was the funniest jokes are the ones that have a grain of truth to them. I played it and I didn't check it with the engine. But he was like, I'm pretty sure it works. And he was laughing too. So it's like now I'm afraid to play a move because I'm afraid that it's the top move and this move would like be too suspicious to people. I'm up like 6-2 against Magnus in a 3-minute match and I'm like filming my monitors with my phone. Like Geary 2 days ago, I won 7.5, 2.5 because Anish played like shit. And I, didn't appreciate some of the chat messages or some of the insinuations there. I'm not saying, he thinks one thing or the other. I mean, people are allowed to think whatever they want to think. Again, I think this is the biggest point to make in this whole discussion is like, I'm not trying to police suspicions at all. But I was filming myself secretly off stream with like literally 5 cameras. And I was anticipating Kramnik making a big deal out of it. And he tweeted about it. So this is actually one of the things that I hate is that like, I'm completely on my own head about this now. I look down and I'm like, oh my God, are they going to think I look down?
No, actually, speaking of, it's interesting that you mentioned like big lopsided scores against people because we've played a few 3-0 matches or mini matches.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like earlier this year during the what was it, Bucharest event, I was playing a bunch of online blitz for whatever reason, which I don't do too often, but okay, a lot of 3-minute. And so I saw that you played the day that I'm playing Noterbeck, that you played a match against him, and I think it was very balanced. Okay, Noterbeck is one of the best players and blitz players in the world, and best players in the world in general. It was more or less balanced. It was like very up, back and forth. Then like the next day, on the free day, I play Noterbeck, and the score it's almost unbelievable. I was like, are people actually going to think I'm cheating? It was 9-1 in my favor, and the one
Whoa.
game I lost, I disconnected in a winning position. So I
You're under
would have
Bucharest,
legitimately
Fabi.
adopted it. And we play like a month later, you and I, and the score, like you're just beating me heavily, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why can't I play? It's like 6-2 or maybe somewhere I don't remember exact score, but you're beating me pretty heavily. And this is just like normal. It's like, okay, yeah, it's possible that someone gets tilted and you beat a top player by 9-1. It's also possible that you lose 9-1 if you get tilted. It just happens. It's not like unusual. All it means is that you're a very good player. I'm a very good player. Noterbeck's a very good player. And yeah, you're going to see maybe some variance. Of course, there are qualitative differences between players, but all it means is that we're pretty close in this format of 3-0 blitz, right? It really doesn't mean much, especially in casual games, uh, unless you go to some insane extreme extent, right? Where you know, you're just like adopting Magnus Carr back to back or something like that. But yeah, this is not, I feel, a metric to go by. Also, like one other point, I just thought about it because you said this game was 2 years ago, right?
Yep. Almost exactly.
And
2 years and 2
and
months.
he is using modern engines,
Yep.
which I assume that in a kind of vague positional type of situation, that engine 2 years ago might give different first, second lines.
I think
Like, could easily-
Lilo was the same version. I actually checked, but I was afraid to say it because people would be like, well, if you're trying to like dispute his version of Stockfish against Wesley, like he used the wrong Stockfish. I was like, well, people are going to think that that's the, like if that's the argument you're making, then you're a cheater. But yeah, you're right. I think that has to be factored in.
It's like one of the least relevant points, perhaps, because I don't really think that we should be basing anything off of this one move. It's like, speaking of statistical data points, like you should go by thousands or tens of thousands. You should not be going by one, right? That's at least my basic understanding of statistics is you don't go by one. You go by big numbers.
The more data points, the better. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you at some point the hunt has to like, okay, I answered the questions. You can't just like keep like digging through my laundry, like take your fucking hands out of my, out of my business. And I think I've demonstrated an openness to like go above and beyond, even to a bad faith actor. And like if that bad faith actor just like continues to like peddle at this point, like total nonsense, like things that are literally incoherent. Like at some point he has to stop, and it's like he's not stopping, and I don't think he's ever going to stop. Like this is a crusade. It's a self like, that's how I mean, he's never called it a crusade, but clearly that's what it is. And I'm just like in shock at like the dedication of this man.
Obviously, you talked about the mental health impact and generally the impact that it had on you, on your play, on your general well-being. But how do you see this one resolve?
Well, obviously, there's people floating the L word lawsuit. I'm going to be honest, and like I don't know if this will have repercussions. Like this is to me the least desirable option for many reasons, but it's very easy for like, Billy Bob or Pink or Elephant 29 on Twitch to say, oh, well, why haven't you like filed a defamation lawsuit? Yeah, well, if you'd like to like help me file this international like defamation lawsuit, against someone who clearly has no issue spending 24 hours a day, trying to attack me in every possible way. All right, be my guest. And whether or not there are grounds for it, like you have to weigh the pros and cons. I think people have a hard time with this. Like it might be the quote unquote right move, but I have no idea what that even entails. And I think it's essentially without precedent. Maybe you guys have some thoughts on this, but other than like, I'm trying every other option. And obviously direct dialogue was extremely like undesirable for me, but I did even that, because ultimately, like I want him to shut the fuck up and like move on with his life and leave me alone. Like I did nothing to do that to deserve this or to provoke this in any way. Like he was accusing me of not standing up for him. Like that's your reason, like that pisses me off more than anything. Like if I was, a loud mouth and, I was defending like, or like publicly calling him out, like I can somewhat understand like him getting pissed or someone who has like clear emotional problems getting pissed. But I was literally minding my own business and like playing Blitz and doing my speed run, and staying out of it. And this is how he comes after me. So like, that's honestly like the most puzzling thing, which tells me that there's probably more to the story, but it's scary. I don't know how it's going to resolve itself. Like hopefully he wears himself out at some point. But
or finds
it's
a new
like
target.
at this finds a new target, but like, people are calling him out, like a lot of people in the chess world are calling him out, and I appreciate the support greatly. I don't think I'm owed any support from anybody. I understand that this is a very nasty, dirty topic, and people have their own plates are full, but it's like he's a runaway train.
Yeah.
Fabi, do you have any thoughts on how this, like, will he eventually wear himself out? Clearly, he's got people working for him.
Well, I really don't know. I don't want to speculate too much on it. Like, yeah, my general impression was that yeah, it felt like too targeted. It felt like, okay, cheating is a general problem. You want to fight cheating. So the best way to do that is probably by speaking to organizations and trying to implement measures. I don't really know what just focusing on one player, even if you were correct, which I don't believe at all, and just like kind of persistently going in this one direction, also without any progress being made. Like he basically admits that nothing will change his mind at this point, to the best of my understanding, and clearly what he's saying is not convincing to others, or to most others.
Do you
again, from
feel
my understanding,
perhaps that your direct interaction yesterday on Levitov has helped the cause, or do you think that it just fueled the fire for him?
I think
personally?
I think it's I don't know if it fueled the fire, but at this point, it was important for me, first of all, to reach some of the more skeptical Russian fans, and I think I did. And it was very important for me to go on record telling Kramnik that this is like three things. I am willing, perhaps even now, to answer legitimate good faith questions, any that you have remaining that I haven't answered thus far. That was answered with, like, I will keep asking them until you answer in a way that satisfies me. And if I may read, like, just a quick excerpt, if that's okay. I don't want to hold you guys up too much. What
Go
this
ahead.
is that okay, or is that too irrelevant? Like,
Please go ahead.
So one of the techniques that was used in the Salem witch trials is you would ask the same question over and over again, right? Until, like, the person kept responding and responding. And, this is psychological torture, but eventually some, like, turn of phrase would be used to fuel the suspicions. And the other big technique that was used is, like, you would get harassed, and then, like, the tiniest turn of phrase would be called a lie. And if you could be on record as a liar, then the accusations would make more sense. And he's doing both of those things verbatim. So 1692, June 10th, Bridget Bishop, she was a 20-year-old girl who was executed in the end. I'm reading from, like, the original document. Like, you can actually make out the writing and the transcript. So Bridget Bishop, you are now brought before the authority to give account of what witchcrafts you are conversant in. This is like 1600s text. She says, I take all this, people, to witness that I am clear. Hath this woman hurt you, speaking to the afflicted? You are accused by 4 or 5 for hurting them. She says, I never saw these persons before, nor I never was in this place before. They say you are bewitched your first husband to death. I know nothing of it. Then she shakes her head. I am no witch. And then they keep asking. I have no familiarity with the devil. And then they ask for the 6th or 7th time. Again, she says, I'm innocent. Then for the 8th time, she says, I know nothing of witchcraft. I am innocent to being a witch. I know not what a witch is. And that's where they pounce. And the prosecutor says, how do you know then that you are not a witch and yet not know what a witch is? And she responds, I do not understand what you say. And he repeats, how can you know you are no witch and yet not know what a witch is? Like, how can you know the definition, not know the definition, but also know that you don't belong to the definition? And then later on, they catch her in, like, a quote unquote verbal lie that's totally meaningless. And I won't read more, but this is 1692, not 2022. And if you're doing something that they did before, like executing witches, then it's scary. And I'm not saying this to, like, try to elicit sympathy. I think that's, like, a very improper way of arguing. Like, you should depersonalize it. And I'd have less sympathy for myself if I was a cheater, but I'm not. It's not about that. It's about, like, dude, like, what you're doing is fucked up and medieval and very, very primitive. And it has led absolutely nowhere. And you're just going to redouble your efforts. Even after I told you, that's, like, the 3rd thing I told him, you're causing me, like, deep emotional harm that's turning into physical harm. So please stop. And I will continue, like, the good faith dialogue. And he, like, not only spits on that, but the very next day continues to engage in the same behavior. Like, to me, I've given him enough chances, but I no longer have any respect for him as a person. And I've held out long enough, and I've been polite for long enough. But this is like breached all acceptable boundaries, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the right way to sort of kind of phase out of this interview. But last, I just want to ask you, how do you plan on moving on from this situation? Obviously, at some point, perhaps you will need to just like tune him out. But what are some of the strategies that you have, let's say, thought about to help you move on and help you continue competing and showing your best self whenever you're out there in any capacity, as a commentator, as a player, as a streamer?
Well, I think that I've been happy with my strategy and I have had to formulate a strategy because it's important for me that like people, don't like think the wrong thing. Like I wanted to defend myself factually, and I think I've done a good job of that. And I don't think that there will always be haters and trolls. Like if it wasn't this, it would be something else. They will find a reason. They will find a hate train to jump onto. I've kind of come to terms with the fact that his tweets and his YouTube comments are going to get responses and some engagement, to propagate it. But ignoring is the only thing remaining. Like I've went on some podcasts, like there will be another podcast with a Russian YouTuber, chess YouTuber that's really popular coming out with some more evidence and eye tracking data. Like I've put out like the entire body of evidence that I think just like puts his quote unquote questions to the dust. And like that's all I can do. Like at this point, I have to move on with my life. If it crosses a certain line, I don't know what line this is. This will not go on for a year. Like at some point, I will lose my patience, and like the drag and the annoying parts of the lawsuit will outweigh like the damage that he's doing to my reputation. But I am really grateful to the chess world at large, and for fans for in some cases like suspending their disbelief or maybe even changing their mind on the basis of facts. It's nice to know that sanity prevails over like rank insanity and cruelty. And I'm not asking for sympathy. The support has been nice. I'm just asking people to look at the facts and conclude the most objective thing based on the facts. And of course, all of the top players who have supported me and the ability to go on your show and what you guys have said today, it helps me realize that there's like, most people still are like out for the truth. And of course, like I hope we can continue the anti-cheating dialogue. Like I think cheating is a huge problem. And my sincere hope is that like this will not be used by actual cheaters as a cover, and as, oh, look what happened to like Danya, or like look what happened to this guy. We need to be humane and understanding to like people who are caught. Nobody's asking to be burnt at the stake. But I think that you also can't use this as a reason to like not express suspicions. So hopefully we can move forward in a rational way. And I'm just going to keep doing what I do.
Well, Danya, that sums it up for me. Fabi, if you have any more questions, if not, I'll call it a day.
No, I think we've said everything. Thanks for coming on our show, Danya. And
it's an honor. Thank you for having me. I know it's not an easy topic to be a part of in any capacity, but I'm so grateful. This was therapeutic, and also I hope I was reasonable in my assertions.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Danya, for coming, and good luck with the whole situation.
Thank you.